Hi, this is Melanie for the Pardesi channel, and I have a special guest. This is Sunny from Sunny's Starlight. He has a brand new YouTube channel, 2 weeks old, but he was a long-time commenter, and if anybody else is watching from other reaction channels, Sunny has commented. He watches. When did you start watching all of these YouTube channels? What kind of interested you about all the reactions and the English language reviews? I don't know.
Okay, well, first of all, hi everyone, and hi Melanie. Thank you very much for inviting me on this podcast, and it's been a pleasure watching you. Now, I started watching YouTube a very long time ago, just various things, but then suddenly I saw these non-Indian reactors, and I was watching them, and I was thinking, wow, some of them are good, some of them aren't good, but for me, I grew up as an Indian outside of India all my life. So I actually sort of started to help these people out by giving them a little bit of history, because I actually have a history, whereas they don't. So they don't have the context. So I thought, well, actually, it'll save them time catching up on 20, 30 years or whatever of Hindi cinema. So I decided to help these people out. And here I am because I was helping somebody out recently. And then my family and friends said, well, why don't you just start your own YouTube channel? So I thought, yeah, why don't I? So I then started my channel, and here we are.
And this is one of my favorite things about having this podcast and having this YouTube channel, is I viewed it as a conversation. And then, yeah, Sunny and I have just hit it off. Although he still has an issue with me because I cannot pronounce Pardesi.
Can I
so I think that was your very first comment to me. It's not Pardesi.
Can I just tell the audience about how we first sort of came across each other? So I saw you on Bollyfools the very first time, and I remember seeing distinctly your review of Bahubali.
Yeah.
And I saw that, and then I sort of followed you a little bit just by watching you. And then suddenly I saw you started your own channel. So I thought, yeah, great. So I'll subscribe to Melanie. And we didn't speak. I didn't comment much, or I did comment, and we didn't sort of interact that much. And then I think you got the Pardesi logo. And I remember you saying, welcome to Pardesi. And I thought, okay, I'll just educate Melanie and say it's purr, as in cats purring, Pardesi, because Indians actually put an A instead of a U in most cases. Yeah. So I tried teaching you that, and to know, because you just kept going on and on. And you know what? I've actually come to love it now. So I actually prefer you to say Pardesi.
I don't know. I try to do it, like, literally I would have in my mind, okay, Sunny said Pardesi. But then I would forget. So it's just, I don't know. It's something about my Chicago accent too. I don't know. It's one of those. It's funny. It's the name of my channel, but I guess it's a name I keep mispronouncing. So,
but it now makes you unique. So I think that's great. And it's kind of apt, isn't it? Because you are a foreigner, and it kind of sort of reflects that as well. So I think it's just perfect now. So just leave it as it is.
So I'm so glad you've moved from just watching other people to creating your own channel and contributing to all of this Bollywood world, the Indian cinema world. And just to let you know, there's another video that we made where we talk extensively about Kedarnath and Sarah Ali Khan and her family's history and so forth. So definitely go and check that out, because we had a nice long chat about that. And I learned so many things about her family and about the background of the movie, which is what I'm always wanting to learn, new things about the movies. I mean, it was just, things like there's a scene in one of the songs where they're sharing a cup of chai, and you told me about how that sort of a courting thing, which is not something that's obvious to me, and I loved, not necessarily something you can look up on Wikipedia, let's just put it that way.
No.
So it was the sort of little background knowledge to enhances my enjoyment of watching that scene now, knowing what it really means. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, certain nuances of the films, say, for example, we were to watch a Chinese film together. I mean, some things will go over our head, unless, of course, we know the context, or we know somebody, we understand the language, or not even if you understood the language, it might go over your head because you haven't grown up in that culture.
Right.
So,
Right. Exactly.
it helps if somebody from that culture explains it to you. So yeah, I'm glad I could do that for you.
So
And
you
I think,
promised me some Bollywood gossip, some Bollywood news. So what have you got?
yeah. Well, so Bollywood gossip. First of all, let me just touch very briefly, very, very briefly on Thugs of Hindustan, which I was so excited about, and it was my film of the year, and I was so let down. So I was so disappointed. I did a movie review first of all, and then I also did a public reaction. In the UK, which is something which I will be doing regularly from now on. So whenever I go and see a film in the cinemas, I will be getting some public reaction because a lot of people in India do it,
Yeah.
but they're
Yeah.
all in Hindi, and
Right.
people like yourself
I
don't
can't. Yeah.
understand.
Right.
So I think it's great that I can do that for you because you thoroughly enjoyed that, and it's the most viewed video on my channel at the moment. So
Yeah. I really
I shall
liked. I
certainly be
mean, it
doing
was
that.
definitely just hearing. Universally, it was people that felt like you did that they were disappointed because they did have such high expectations of the film, and I guess because I started to see the bad reviews come in, I went into the film with lowered expectations. And to me, there were still things that were worthwhile about it. It was still
Mm,
fun to see Amitabh and Amir in a movie together. Some of the things were clunky, but I felt like it got so much hate. But I think it's because the expectations were way up here, and you
mm,
just and it but some of it just wasn't good. I mean, the script sometimes just didn't make sense. The way it was edited didn't make sense. Just didn't, the pacing kind of got off because of the way they edited it. But to me, there was still, I'm always like, seeing a glass half full, you know what I mean? I was like, well, there's
yeah.
still some things that I enjoyed, and it was worth my matinee reduced price ticket. So, so it was okay. So, anyway, but I know what
But
you mean.
I'll tell you very briefly in a nutshell what the problem was with this film was that they pulled the focus away from the characters they should have actually focused on, and because they had the big star Amir Khan, who was actually a peripheral character, they
Right.
focused it all on him. Now, if they'd only made him the king's son and focused on him,
Yeah.
then that would have worked. But because Fatima Sana Sheikh was the focus, and so was Amitabh Bachchan, who was protecting her, they were forgotten and they were sidelined because Amir was a big character. And I think it just got too sidetracked. There weren't enough development of the characters,
Yeah.
and there weren't enough other peripheral characters. They didn't give anybody else a chance. Even the old lady, who was like the old witch
Yeah.
doctor kind
Yeah.
of woman,
Right.
she could have had a great part to play. But and then there were unnecessary scenes that were just stretched out where he had his sidekick where he goes to meet him in
Yeah.
the
Yeah. I agree.
jail to recruit him. That could have just been completely cut out, and you could have just said they were fighting together in the beginning when they were thugging people together, and that
Yeah.
would have been established that they're friends. So yeah, there were lots of things. But anyway, enough of thugs because I think
Yeah.
unfortunately it's been declared a massive flop in India, and it's done less business than Race 3, in fact.
Oh my
So
God.
yeah,
Oh,
and
that is brutal. That is brutal. Oh man.
I know,
Well, you don't have
but
the Salmon buys to go and watch it no matter
yeah.
what, I guess, huh?
No,
Oh
so all the
man.
Salman fans are actually rejoicing at the moment, and also I think the film that's benefited mostly from this is Ayushmann Khurrana's Badai. In week 5, it's doing tremendous business at the box office. So it's actually gone past the 150 crores, which is more than what Thugs of Hindustan has actually done in its
Right.
lifetime now.
Right. And if
And
you think
crores,
about the two budgets
yeah,
and how they
yeah,
compare what they spent on Thugs
exactly,
of Hindustan and what small budget they must have had on Bud Hi Ho, wow. Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, it's one of those movies that's just word of mouth. I know I was that
mm,
way, and telling all the Desi women in my dance class, I'm like, this is the movie that you have to go see, meaning
yeah,
Bad Hi Ho. I'm like, don't miss this one. It's
mm,
just really, I think especially a comedy like that, it's very fun to see in a crowd and have everybody laughing around you. It just makes it more
mm.
fun than just watching it at home alone. So, yeah, I'm so happy for Ayushman because I really
Yeah.
really enjoyed that film.
Well, this is his second hit in a row within a space of weeks, because he had Andhadhun, which did extremely well. So I think the small films are actually doing quite well at the moment. And for people who don't know, I think if we there's now something called the 100 crore club. So if they pass that business, they're in the club. Then there's the 200 crore club. Then the 300 crore club. Right. And 100 crore, I must tell people who don't know, is equivalent to $1 billion. So 100 crores equals $1 billion. So we're talking rupees. Right. So if it's 100 crore, it's actually $1 billion. If they've done $1 billion rupees worth of business, and so that's kind of sort of cleared things up for people. But Thugs of Hindustan actually spent 350 crores in the making. But all the distributors and the cinema halls have lost out, because Yash Raj will make their movie from digital rights and music and all sorts of other things. So they've actually made their money. So the news that I've got now is Amir Khan's next project.
Oh,
right. It's not confirmed, but these are rumors, and you will absolutely love this, I think. So there was talk of him he's actually keen to produce it, which is a biopic on Gulshan Kumar, who is the head of T-Series, who got brutally murdered by the mafia.
Wow.
So I don't know if you know the story of him, but he was a big music mogul who started T-Series, which is actually now doing so well on YouTube. As we know.
I think it's the number one channel.
Yeah, so him and PewDiePie, there's that sort of rivalry going on. But Gulshan Kumar was actually the guy who started off T-Series as a small music cassette business, and it's just grown into an empire. And he was actually gunned down by the underground mafia that sort of harassed and bullied a lot of the film industry in India. So there was this biopic about him, and initially it was supposed to star Akshay Kumar after Gold. So he kind of sort of shown some interest in it, and then he got he sort of went out of it. He lost interest. He's got some other projects going on. So then Amir Khan was then sort of very keen on mentoring Ranbir Kapoor after Sanju. So he was trying to rope Ranbir into it. But then again, it would be a second biopic for Ranbir. So I think he kind of sort of said no to the idea. So eventually, Amir decided to play that character himself. But then things went sort of upside down, because the director of the film got caught up in this Me Too movement with some allegations. So he was thrown out. And so it's kind of hanging in the balance whether he was going to do it or not now. But then they did find another director. But now I'm hearing that that's been put on hold. And the other thing, the project that Amir Khan wanted to do was a 1,000 crore project of the Indian epic Mahabharata with all the biggest stars in Bollywood. And that's been put on ice as well. And so now his next project, from what I'm hearing, is it's going to be an official remake of Forrest Gump.
What?
Yes.
What?
Yep. So we have got
that's sort of like his PK.
Yes, exactly.
It's sort of like that,
my thoughts are he should not do it, because he's already done that character in PK.
Well, I mean, definitely you could make it just for India and tailored to that. And it's been a long time since Forrest Gump was out, so there's definitely a whole audience that probably is not really familiar with that in India, and it's been a long time. But I sort of agree with you; it's very similar to the PK character. So I don't know.
But I think what will probably appeal to the Indian audience is going to be that. How Tom Hanks was superimposed with historical events. So they'll have some Indian historical sort of people and events that they'll show. But I'm just wondering what they'll say. Life is like a box of laddus. You never know what you're going to get. But so that's the news. I mean, I'm not a fan of this, because I think it's a classic and you shouldn't touch it. And he's already done a character very similar where he's running like Tom Hanks in PK. He's a sort of a child.
Yeah,
But you know, who knows?
he could make it work. He could make it
Yeah.
work. It would be interesting to see. Um, it would be interesting to see how they change it up for like you
Mm.
say, which significant events would he be a witness to? Would he be in the middle of
Oh,
famous cricket games? Or, it will be interesting to
yeah.
see what kind
I
of
mean,
moments
there's
they would
definitely
pick.
going to be something with Gandhi in it, I'm sure,
Right. Yeah.
during that period, or possibly sort of the independence type, that era. But again, I mean, it's not confirmed, but these are,
Hmm.
when you have rumors about Amir Khan, there's some truth to it. So I think there might be some truth to this. So the other news I've got for you is 2.0,
Okay.
which is releasing very soon. And you know, it's been shot in 3D with the cameras, 3D cameras like
Right.
Avatar was.
Right.
And apparently, um, I don't know how much truth there is to this, but uh, James Cameron is already shooting two episodes of Avatar back to
Yeah.
back.
Right.
And he's actually trying to work on this thing whereby you don't need to wear 3D glasses, and you can still get the 3D effect just by sitting there on the screen. Well, apparently, because outside of the metro areas in India, the 3D glasses are going to be very cheap and very horrible. Apparently, the rumor is that they have done that technology before Avatar, so you won't need to wear glasses. I don't know how much stock we can put into this rumor, but
I
if
don't
they
know.
have, wow, I mean, that's going to be
Yeah, that would
huge.
be amazing.
Yeah, so
And I do know that, like, there's a famous film critic that covers mostly Southern movies, Bharadwaj Rangan. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he
yeah,
was one of
I've
the
heard him.
people that was able to see the trailer in 3D in a theater setting. And so
Yeah.
he said all the naysayers are saying that are watching on their cell phone and saying it doesn't look good. He said I've seen it in 3D, and I didn't know if that meant that he's sorry. I didn't know if that meant that he saw it with glasses. He didn't say one
Mm.
way or the other, but he probably would have. If it was a surprise that it was 3D without glasses, it would have been
No, 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 no.
embargoed that he wouldn't have been able to say that. At that point,
Mm.
that was before everyone else got to see the trailer.
No,
So
I
I
think
don't know.
they haven't shown that to anybody yet without the glasses. So I'm not sure how much stock to put in. But that is the aim of James Cameron with the next film, because obviously he doesn't want people to wear those glasses because they can sort of
Well, for
irritate
people
your
like
eyes.
me, where you've got
Yeah,
glasses
exactly,
and then you're trying to put another
exactly.
pair of glasses on top of it, it works
Yep.
okay. But yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, if they've done it, great. I mean, again, the Indians are the first ones to kind of do something like that. And just going back to some of the gossip with South Indian cinema. So for the viewers on my channel, I'd just like to say that Melanie. Not only watches Hindi films, but she also
yeah.
is a huge expert on South Indian films,
Oh no.
i.e., Telugu, Tamil, Kannada, Malayalam, everything South Indian. She knows more about South Indian films than I do, so I think we kind of complement each other in that respect.
I don't know that
Uh,
I would say I'm an expert, but I do enjoy watching
oh,
those films, and I try to do trailer reactions and reviews of all of those new release films that I can watch. I mean, there's a lot of them, so I can't see
yeah,
all of them. But yeah, I love them, and there's each of them has their own different flavor and different. Malayalam films are more natural acting style.
mm,
They're more like independent cinema in Hollywood, and I like the masala films, and I like all of it. I mean, Bahubali was kind of what got me into watching more southern
yeah,
films, and it's a whole different world. And I mean, like for instance, last weekend we didn't have a Hindi release because the distributors were probably saying, "Okay, we'll have to stay away from Thugs of Hindustan." Little did they know. But then I had a new release to watch in Telugu. So there was a new Vijay Deverakonda film, Taxiwala. So there's always something
yes,
playing. It's hard to keep track of all of it.
which
But
I read on your Twitter, I think it was, that they actually had the subtitles in yellow, which I wish they would do,
yeah.
because white does just not work. So if anybody out there who's in production is actually listening, please do your subtitles in yellow so people can actually see them.
Yeah.
because white against white, we cannot see these.
Yeah, I
So
know.
yeah,
It's very frustrating. And that's one of the woman that did the subtitles for Taxiwala. Her name is Rex, Rekhs. And she did the subtitles for Bahubali. She did the subtitles for Raj Khan's last film. I believe she may be doing the subtitles for 2.0, so I'm excited. But that's kind of her
right.
trademark, is that she
Mm,
tries to have the subtitles in yellow because she knows that makes for much more
yeah.
readability. And she also makes a point of always subtitling the songs, which a lot of
Yes.
other films, they don't do that, and they just are like, well, it's just a song. But it can have a
Yeah.
lot of meaning to the, I mean, there's plot or a storyline that can continue through a song, and it's important. So, um, I appreciate that. That she, in fact, she tries to always make it rhyme as well. If it's a song, she makes it
Mm,
rhyme in English. I don't know if you to me, if I could just get the gist of what the meaning of the song is, I would be fine. But she kind of
mm,
goes the extra mile. So to me, she's sort of the stamp of quality on subtitles, and she does a lot of the southern films. She has a company, and they do, you know, Malayalam, Telugu, Tamil, all of those different industries. So yeah, I agree with you. The yellow, especially this last film I just saw, Taxiwala, the opening scene. There's a character that's wearing a white T-shirt. The car, it's a haunted car. The car is white. So yeah, the main character is a taxi driver, and his car is haunted. So the car is white, so you can imagine there's a lot of subtitles on top of white, and if they hadn't been
yeah.
yellow, it would have been, from the beginning when you're trying to get your bearings of what's going on, it would have been really hard to figure out what was going on. So,
You know, I love South Indian films. I mean, I watch them. The only problem I have with them is because obviously I don't understand any of the South Indian languages. I understand Hindi perfectly well. So for me, I'm in the same boat as you in terms of reading subtitles. So I really would appreciate subtitles I can read. But also, I wish that the directors made the actors speak a little bit slower or
mm,
have some spacing in between their lines because the South Indian languages by nature are very fast.
yeah,
So if they have a long piece of dialogue, I haven't even got halfway through the sentence and it's gone. So I
yeah,
wish, because now they're becoming more international, I hope they just become a little bit more aware, along with yellow subtitles, that they need to start filming at a slower pace in terms of the dialogue or have the subtitles on there long enough for us to actually finish reading them.
yeah.
So that's my only thing. But just to give you a little bit of news, which I don't know if you know about this, but Rajamouli is now announced his next project, which we're all dying to know about, and he's signed on two of the biggest South Indian stars, which is Junior NTR and Ram Charan. Now I don't know what the film's actually going to be called, but
Yeah, I'm not sure I
obviously it's
know
going to
what the film's going to be called either, but he's had blockbuster films with both of those actors separately, and to have
yeah.
them together in a film is pretty amazing. So, Junior NTR, I think, did Rajamouli's first film. They did a couple of films, at least two films together. One was a fantasy film called Yamadanga, and then Ram Charan was in Magadira, which was what was remade into Rabta, unsuccessfully remade into
Yeah.
Rabta.
I
But it was
absolutely
much,
loved Magadira. That was one of my favorite films with
yes.
him and Kajol Agarwal. And I don't know if you know, Ram Charan is actually the son of Chiranjeevi, who was
Oh,
a
I didn't
big
know that.
star. His father was a huge star. He was a couple of fun facts for you, but Chiranjeevi was the first Indian actor to be invited to the Oscars.
Really?
Um, he was the first actor to actually get 1 crore for a role back in the day when nobody had actually ever heard of getting 1 crore for a role. And thirdly, he's most remembered for that awful dance that he copied off Michael Jackson's Thriller. If you've seen that video on YouTube, have you seen it? Search for South Indian version of Michael Jackson's Thriller, and that is Chiranjeevi,
Oh,
unfortunately. But he was actually a good sort of break dancer and what have you. So I think in Magadira he actually makes a brief appearance in the beginning with his
okay.
son. where he shows him some dance moves and then he disappears through the gates. So yeah, I do absolutely love South Indian films, and I can watch some of these. But what's happened recently in the last 20 years or so, I think it just becomes the same thing over and over again, which is machete fights and,
I know, but I love machete fights.
I know. I love them occasionally as well. But what I do love about South Indian cinema is that they are so inventive with their fight sequences and their dance sequences. I mean, nobody does fight sequences like them. So every time you see a fight sequence, it's always something new, and you think, right, okay. I mean, it's completely way over the top, but
well, I mean, there's so many films that then get copied and remade into Hindi. Like Singham is a good example, which had crazy fight sequences, and then they kind of even, crazy with cars, rolling on the air and all of this kind of stuff. And so they kind of had to copy that, and it had that same style with AJ Devgan, where he just grabs somebody out of the car that's flying over him, because that's very similar to Telugu kind of action sequences, and it had that flavor in the Singham film. So yeah, I like all of that. I don't know why I'm so bloodthirsty and I like machete fights, because I just do. When it comes to Saturday night, I'm like, yeah, I think I want to watch a Telugu film.
You're weird, Melanie.
I am weird, but I also like I like Prabhas and all of those action stars in the Southern films too, though. And Mahesh Babu, all of those. Yeah,
well, I mean, again, you mentioned two of the stars that I like personally, which is Mahesh Babu and Prabhas as well. And I'm really looking forward to Prabhas's Hindi movie debut, which is Sahu, with opposite Shraddha Kapoor. We've seen a bit of a teaser, so I'm really looking forward to that because they've spent an awful lot of money on that. So I can't wait to see that film. But just to give you a little bit of context in terms of Hindi cinema and South Indian cinema, South Indian cinema was actually, before the machete fights and what have you, was well known for its family and social dramas, which was very popular in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and even 70s to a certain extent. It was only in the 80s that we started with machete stuff. And these films didn't have much exposure outside of India, let alone outside of the southern part of India. So what we had was this southern movie industry, which was all combined with Telugu and Tamil, based in Madras, which is now Chennai, of course. And Bollywood was actually, Madras was the second home for Bollywood, where they took their actors and shot these films, which were of social dramas, family dramas, and a lot of South Indian directors, which we had, like T. Rama Rao and K. Bapaya and K. Raghavendra Rao, who's a big sort of director. So these directors actually directed a lot of Hindi stars. And back in the day, ever since I can remember, the greatest sort of like legends of Hindi screen, mostly the ladies, most of them came from South India, the likes of Vijayanti Mala,
Sri Devi,
latest, then Hema Malini, and Rekha, my favorite, which I'll tell you a story about at some point. But, so these women actually, some of them actually never worked in South Indian films, like Hema Malini. They came straight into Bollywood and they started their careers in Hindi and stayed there. So we had these huge legends back in the day. Wahida Rehman, who's primarily known for Hindi cinema. These are iconic actresses. The men didn't make it so much in those days. I don't know why. But the females certainly did, because they were beautiful. They still are, obviously. And so they actually used to make a lot of Hindi films in South India. And of course, now there's this rivalry. So if you get it wrong and somebody says, like yourself says, Bollywood, God forbid, right, somebody from South India is going to make a comment on your channel saying, it's actually Tollywood. And they'll say something like that to you. And in fact, I think is it Tollywood or Collywood? I think it's Tollywood. Tollywood actually isn't the term for the Telugu film industry. It was actually coined initially for the Bengali cinema. So it was actually used for Bengali films back in the day, and it was known as Tollywood then, before Bollywood came into play as well. Tollywood was the very first name that was used for Bengali film industry, and then it's now sort of migrated down south. So
Right.
there's an interesting fact for you.
Yeah, it's like Tollywood, Collywood,
Yeah,
Mollywood.
Mollywood,
Yeah, and then
Bollywood.
I guess Canada is, though, that is sandal. Sandalwood or
Yeah,
something.
sandalwood.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, you've got lots of woods everywhere. In fact, you've got Lollywood, which is in Pakistan.
Right.
Then you've got Nollywood, which is in Nigeria.
Yes.
so,
Yes, you
so
do.
you've got lots of woods everywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, so as I said, I mean, the actual income of all these film industries that come out. Obviously, Hindi cinema still leads the front. It has a share of 46% of all the films. Telugu and Tamil have a combined percentage of about 36%, and then all the other regional films actually make up the rest of the income from the film industry. So Bollywood is still out there. And I think what used to happen in the South Indian cinema was that they used to, because the Bollywood actors were well known throughout the country, because it was mostly contained within India, there wasn't an overseas market as such. Although I was born overseas and I saw one film a week anyway, so there were certain parts of the world that you could actually see these released at the same time. But yeah, these films actually didn't see much light of day outside the southern. I mean, they made their own regional languages film. But they just didn't see much light of day outside of the southern Indian film industry or the southern part of India, and they only saw a small amount of business in the day. So in order to get that recognition, they employed a lot of Hindi movie actors and actresses. So that's the kind of you know what I mean. I get it that people are actually proud of the region that they come from, and so you should be. But I'd like to quote Shah Rukh Khan's dialogue from Chak De India. I do not hear states. All I hear is India.
Right.
Yeah. So we've got to sort of like stick together as one
I
nation,
mean,
because
yeah,
if
like
we don't,
Bahubali should be celebrated no matter where it came from. I mean, I know the people from the South are proud, but that was, I hope that's maybe moving forward. There's more like that where there are things that just cross and everyone can be a fan of just a great film because it's a great film, you know, and it
and
has a reach.
And South Indian films, I mean, they are the first ones to evolve with technology. Let me tell you, they come up with innovations. If I'm right about this 3D experience without the glasses, then of course they've done something wonderful there. Of course, I'm waiting to see this 2.0 and the special effects that they've done. Again, so the South has a lot to offer, and if they work together like they used to back in the day. There were two huge studios in Madras, and they're still there. So initially, there were two major studios, AVM, which was owned by AV Menon, and Gemini Studios, which made all these family social dramas, which were absolutely brilliant, made in the Hindi language. They also made some South Indian language films as well. And in the 60s, there was another big producer, sort of magnet sort of film producer called LV Prasad. So at the moment, they have the surviving, I think it's the Menon Studios, AVM Studios, or is it the Gemini Studios? I think studios actually. And the LV Prasad studios are still in operation. And in fact, I think it's in Chennai that they have the biggest IMAX cinema in the whole world.
Wow.
Apparently, and it's always running sort of to packed houses. So look that up on Google. I think you'll find it there somewhere. But yeah, I think the South Indian film industry, it does get its knockbacks, but I think as does Hindi films. But combined together, they could be a force to be reckoned with. So regardless of which wood you come from, I think it should just be the Indian film industry, and that's the way I view it.
Well, I mean, to me, a good story is a good story.
Yeah.
And there's so many Hindi films that have been remade from blockbuster films in the South. I mean, it's almost a cliche. Like, for instance, Drishyam which Ajay Devgan did, which I actually haven't seen that version yet because I've seen the original Mohanlal
Yeah.
Malayalam film, and I think that was remade. I think Kamal Hassan did a version of it too in Tamil. So that, you know, when there's a good script, when there's a good idea, it just travels around and it gets remade. We mentioned Singham as an example. That was a big franchise for Surya and Tamil industry. But I'm also pleased when there's crossover. I mean, what surprised me is that it's really difficult for people in India to watch films in the other industries. Like you were saying, you don't know the language, so you're having to watch subtitles. Well, the problem is, in India, they may not be shown with subtitles. So maybe you're in Bangalore, which has populations of that speak different languages, but they have then separate movie theaters. So you have the ones that show Telugu films, you have the ones that show Tamil films, you have the ones that show Kannada films, and they can't cross over because they don't necessarily speak enough of the other language to enjoy a film. And I mean, I've seen tweets of saying, you know, such and such theater is showing the movie with rec subtitles. You can, you know, so that because they're hearing that something's good, but they can't go and watch it unless it's been released as a dubbed film. Like the Bahubalis was released as a dubbed film. Whereas for me, everything I'm watching with English subtitles. So it doesn't make any difference to me. I mean, I've gradually learned certain Hindi words that add to my enjoyment, or I'm starting to learn some of the relationship words, the family words, and some of the Southern language to at least, you know, not all of those kind of side words maybe are exactly put into the subtitles, and it adds a little bit of flavor if you know, if he's calling somebody an auntie or you know, his elder brother or whatever it is. But yeah, and it just kind of struck me that how right now, because there's no subtitles, even if they were all in English there, you know, they don't necessarily have that widely available where they can watch each other's industries. And I think that is really a shame because I think there's so much similarity. Or maybe someone wants to, you know, is used to watching masala films or would prefer to watch occasionally a more naturalistic family drama in the Malayalam industry. So, but yet they can't because they don't speak Malayalam, and so they can't go see that Prithviraj film or that Mohanlal film or whatever. So that's really a shame, and I wish, you know, I wish there was more available like that. But for those of us outside of India, we're seeing them. Pretty much all the films have English subtitles. There was one film that I went into, and I had made such a big deal when I bought my ticket. Yes, I know it's an Indian film. And then it was Telugu comedy with Anushka Shetty, size 0. No subtitles, and I had to sit there through a 2.5 hour movie. There was an occasional English word, but I had to watch it again later when it came on streaming. But I was like too embarrassed to walk out past that ticket counter. But almost always there are subtitles in English. So here people can enjoy different films, even if they didn't grow up speaking that language, they can go and enjoy it. And for some of my neighbors, it was like, for instance, when the Bahubali films came out, it was a price point because the Hindi film version of Bahubali was $25, but if you wanted to see it in Telugu, it was $33. Right. So the ticket price was different. And so some people are like, well, I'll just watch it in the Hindi, you know, just because it's cheaper. Yeah. So it was, I mean, that was just interesting to me. Yeah, the ticket price difference, is it the same in England that the Telugu films are more money, or is everything all the same?
No, fortunately for us, it's all the same, and it's a flat price. So, and also in India, you'll find that certain movies will raise their prices. So, for example, Thugs of Hindustan actually raised their prices so high. So the reason why they made as much money as they have been able to make is because they inflated their prices because it's an Amir Khan film. So initial take was quite high, but then the numbers dipped because they were eventually giving the tickets away for free. for people to actually come in and see. Just going back to your point about the language and the subtitles, I'll tell you what the issue is. So in India, we have all these regional languages, and for us, it's brilliant because we all understand the common language of English, so we can read the subtitles. There, unfortunately, they don't read or know English in terms of the masses who aren't the people who sort of are educated to that level. So unfortunately, they can't have English subtitles. And then, as you said, you can probably show them in certain cinemas only for certain language speaking people. So this is where it's come about, where they remake them in other regional languages, you see. So this is where that concept has come about. Now, initially, Hindi was supposed to be the national language of India back in the day of partition, because Hindi is actually made up of words from different languages anyway. So, but I think, again, you're going to get a lot of people who are going to oppose that kind of idea because they're proud of their regional languages. For regions, not just the South, but everywhere else as well. So I think that never came about. So there isn't that kind of a unification in terms of language because we've got so many different languages. So unfortunately, you will get these films being remade in different parts of the country, and not just the South Indian films being remade into Hindi, but vice versa as well. Right. Just some news for you. You've obviously seen the South Indian hit film Arjun Reddy.
Arjun Reddy, yes. Yeah,
this is that South Indian film, which is now being remade with... Yeah, it's been remade with Shahid Kapoor at the moment. So I think,
Have you seen Arjun Reddy?
I haven't seen all of it. I've seen snippets of it. I don't know why I haven't seen it, but it's on my list to see.
Well,
so I'm definitely going to check it out.
Here it's on Amazon Prime, so I don't know if it's the same in the UK. But I was so blown away by Arjun Reddy that I actually saw it twice in 1 week in the theater. I took my friend Margaret from Don't Call It Bollywood. I'm like, you have to go see this film. And I was blown away by Vijay's performance. There's an iconic scene at the interval point. It's sort of like Devdas.
Right.
And there's a point where he overdoses at the interval, and you actually see him wet his pants. And then, boom, it's the interval. Right. And it's like for a hero to show himself in a vulnerable scene like that was really something. And it was, and then the ending still had, I was like, okay, this is Devdas, but the ending still had surprises for me. And it was so amazing. And then when I heard they were remaking it, I was like, Shahid, really? Okay, I love Shahid in certain things. I mean, I think he's a fine actor. He's a very fine dancer. But he did blow me away in Hater. So I will reserve judgment, but just my initial reaction is because I have such fond feelings for Arjun Reddy, and I know it's being remade in other languages too. I'm just really hesitant about him being cast in that. But I will, I didn't expect the performance that he gave in Haters. So we'll see. We'll see, and do you know who the heroine is supposed to be? Have you heard who the girl is?
No, I haven't heard. I haven't heard the final casting, but Shahid Kapoor's name is definitely sort of in there. Because they went through a whole gamut of names before, so I don't know why they settled or how they settled on Shahid Kapoor. But for me, I get to watch the South Indian films on satellite because we have Sky Satellite, and they show these films at various times in the night, funnily enough, the South Indian films. Mostly they're Hindi, or there are some specific channels which are dedicated to different regional parts of India. But there's 1 or 2 channels that actually show a lot of these South Indian films. So I actually quite get South Indian films. I love some of these films, and I sit there and watch these, and I know some of these stars like Vijay and Ola Arjun and Prabhas and Mahesh Babu. I mean, these are all my favorite guys, and I wish they would make it in Bollywood as well. It's not for want of trying, but it's just, as I said, for some reason, the passage for male actors from the South has not been easy, or there hasn't been an invasion like the females from back in the day of the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So unfortunately, I don't know why it hasn't happened.
Now the complaint, though, is that there's so many Hindi actresses that are coming down south.
Yes.
And there's a complaint like, can't you find a nice girl that speaks Tamil? Because in the same way that we kind of roll our eyes when maybe a Southern actress is trying to speak Hindi and they're not giving her a lot of dialogue in a Hindi film and she's just there to look pretty and dance, it's kind of, then the reverse. So, I mean, there's been... there's been some that are good, but like Aditi Rao Hadari did sort of a Notting Hill kind of a film. I'm blanking on the title of it, but that was very nice, and there's just kind of the point that she was this big actress from the outside. But yeah, it's just been kind of a complaint that someone like Shraddha Kapoor comes down to do a film, and it's like, don't we have enough of our own?
Yeah.
But
yeah, I get that totally, because I've had the same rumors as well. But I mean, by the same token, we had the great Sri Devi who came to Hindi cinema, and she didn't actually speak much Hindi, although she did star as a child in a South Indian film made in the Hindi language called Julie, which was quite a racy film for that day and age. And when she came to Bollywood as a grown up, she couldn't actually speak Hindi. So her first dozen or 24 films were actually dubbed while she was picking up the language. And then finally she had her own voice. So, she picked it up as she went along. And that was the case with a lot of South Indian actresses. Her contemporary, like Jaya Prada, who was also a big Bollywood. There was a huge rivalry between these two actresses. They would not speak to each other, yet they did so many films together. But on sets, they would lock themselves away. And two of their co-stars, who were like Rajesh Khanna and Jitendra, all four of them were working in the film. And so they decided to play a prank on them. And they locked these two actresses in a room and locked the door and said, well, they've got no choice but to talk to them. So for 2 hours, they just sat there staring at the walls, but didn't say a word to each other. And so when they finally opened the door, nothing. It was only recently, in the last few years, that they actually started speaking to each other, because they weren't working in films and the rivalry was kind of dead now. So they actually sort of finally spoke to each other. But they did so many films together. I mean, we're talking about a dozen odd films, and yet they never ever spoke. But yet, they'd play sisters and they'd be hugging and crying with each other.
And then the cameras would stop, and
when they stopped, they'd part ways, and that's it. But that one prank that they played, they locked them in for 2 hours and they didn't say a word. They just sat there with their arms folded and stared at the walls instead. So, yeah, these are some of the funny stories with South Indian sort of actresses. But South Indian actresses, I must say, who've entered Bollywood, their entrance has been made easy because they were absolutely brilliant dancers in the classical sense, like Bharatanatyam.
Yeah.
So the likes of Vijayanti Mala, Padmini, these are evergreen legendary actresses. They made it absolutely. I mean, Vijayanti Mala is the person that they all look to for dancing classical stuff. So, all actresses will refer to her, and she was a huge star in India. I mean, she ruled the roost, basically. So anybody that you speak to, like Sri Devi or Hema Malini or Rekha or anybody else, they would quote Vijayanti Mala as their idol for dancing and their inspiration as well. So these South Indian actresses weren't only just beautiful, but they were great, graceful dancers.
Yeah.
And so they made that transition. Whereas I don't know what the South Indian actors actually brought. That's why maybe they didn't make it so big in Bollywood, because they already had enough people in Bollywood doing what the other heroes were doing.
Well,
so,
I mean,
they didn't have a...
It could have been, if it had been more of an action film, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who had English language, maybe it wasn't the best. Yeah. And when he was known for doing the action films. So maybe they could have done something like that. But the thing is, Hindi films are never just all one thing. You have to do everything all in one movie. So
But,
you know.
but you know what they do? They actually remake them with a bigger star. So like Wanted was made with Salman, which was his comeback film, and he's never looked back since then. Before that, his career was sort of kind of going downhill. It was only Wanted that brought him right back, and that was a remake. I forget the name of the South Indian film. And then, as you said, we have Drishyam and various other
Gajini, was a remake.
Gajini with Amir Khan. So, you know, quite a lot of remakes. And then, of course, we had Shah Rukh's Chennai Express, which is based in the South as well. So that was kind of original, not a remake, but it was all very
in
much
the
style of.
Yeah, well, so at the time when I saw it, Satyaraj, who plays Deepika's father, then of course he went into to be in the Bahubali film. So and then when I went back, I was like, I mean, you know, you just don't know that how big he was down there.
What was his name? So, Katayappa was.
Katapa.
Yeah, Katapa or something like that. Yeah. So when I saw him, I said, I know him from somewhere. Where do I know him from? Because he looked so different with the facial hair.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it came to me, and I said, oh, that was Deepika's father. You know, and Deepika did a good South Indian accent because she actually is from South India anyway. So I thought she did exceptionally well in that film.
Oh, she did. She was so... Her comedic talents in that, especially I'm thinking of the scene where she had the nightmare or whatever, and she she really, really cracked me up. I just thought she was so good in that. You see how far she came from Om Shanti Om. You know, she really, she really came a long way.
But I mean, I don't know if it was lost on you, but her accent, I mean, a lot of people kind of criticized it and said, oh, well, it wasn't good. But she is from South India, and she did nail it because, you know, the way she said, you know, the way she sort of talked about the dictionaries and what bakwas dictionary are you talking about, which is what rubbish dictionary are you talking about. And, you know, some of the accents she was doing, the lilting sort of affectations in her voice. I mean, it was just, for me, I've heard South Indian accents and I think, you know, I quite like it. South Indian culture in the UK is very big as well. So we have a lot of these masala dosa places and things like that. And we don't have too many films in the cinemas, though. That's the only thing. It's mostly on the cable that we get these straight away. So we don't get them. I mean, we get the odd big blockbuster. And of course, we had the Bahubali films in here. So anything huge, I mean, we'll get those. But generally, they tend to go to satellite straight away. And Hindi films as well. Within 2 months, they're already on satellite.
Oh, yeah, same. Well, so, it's on the war between the streaming services between Netflix and Amazon Prime has only been to my benefit because it'll be a matter, like you say, it'll be a matter of, sometimes it's like 6 weeks, the movie is gone and now boom, it's on Netflix or boom, it's on Amazon Prime. So if I miss something, I usually am able to catch up with it now, which is wonderful. And the whole reason I discovered and fell in love with Indian films 4 years ago was because of Netflix. Because at that time, they were playing DDLJ and Rabni Banadi Jodi. And so I was able to watch those two films back to back. And then I'm like, okay, I want more. I want more.
So how did you get into South Indian films then from there? Is it because you had a huge community of South Indian people?
My next door neighbors are from the South. They speak Tamil and Kannada. And they said, well, I went with my neighbor to Bahubali. I'm not sure she'd ever seen a Telugu film.
Okay.
But she said, I'm hearing from my coworkers that there's this, you know, really good film. You want to go see it? And then we went there and we had to pay $20. We're like, this better be worth it. Which, of course, it was. So, you know, that we both just kind of took a chance on that. That was my first Telugu film. But Tamil films, because Mani Ratnam, because I'm such a Shah Rukh fan, I had seen Dil Se.
Yeah.
And then, I saw, like, some of my neighbors like, oh, well, you need to see some of his older classic films, like Roja, like Mona Ragam. And then, it was actually because of the song Mental Manadil. I went to an A.R. Rahman concert in Chicago. And I'm not even sure OK Kanmani had come out, which stars Dulquer Salman and Nithya Menon.
Yes.
But the soundtrack was all A.R. Rahman. And again, he partners with Mani Ratnam. And I heard the song in the concert, and I'm like, I have to see the movie. I have to see what the visuals were that went with this song. And then I fell in love with Dulquer Salmon, and then that was his like first Tamil film, but most of his work is in the Malayalam industry. And then I started watching those films, and I was a goner for just all of those kind of films. Bangalore Days, which is a huge, I don't know if you've seen that. But,
no, it's on my list.
Oh, you need to see it. It's so good. It's so good. And it has a lot of the young stars. It's a woman director. And it has a lot of the young stars that are really big in Malayalam cinema. And they're all starting to cross over. I'm seeing there's a lot of Nithya Menon. You know, she's working in Tamil films and Telugu films. Niven Pauly did a Tamil kind of gangster kind of film. It wasn't the best, but he was trying to do a crossover. And then, of course, Dulquer did Mahanati, which was a crossover Telugu Tamil film about the great actress Savitri. And then he had his first film with Irfan Khan, Karwan, earlier this year. Right. And then, but his big debut is going to be The Zoya Factor with Sonam Kapoor, based on the best-selling novel, it's filming now, and so that'll be coming out next year. So I think he's gonna be, I don't know, to me, I can't tell if he has an accent or whatever. I know he speaks English well. He actually went to my son's university. He went to Purdue. Dulquer Salmon did.
Did you meet him?
I did not. That was well before my son was there. But whenever I visit, I just think about how cold it is. And we were freezing at the football game last weekend. And it just kind of blows my mind to think of him walking the streets of West Lafayette, Indiana. But then, Ranveer Singh also went to college in Indiana. So he went to Indiana University and worked at the Starbucks. I saw an interview. Yeah, and he.
So you could have got served by him. Yeah,
he kept his hair long, and all these they're called Jewish American princesses from the North Shore of Chicago. They were just he's so exotic.
Yeah.
Go get their coffee every morning before class from Ranveer. But
so you actually sort of got into those. Did you actually notice the distinction between the two different types of filmmaking, from Bollywood to Tollywood, maybe, or Mollywood?
Yeah, I do.
Or did you just think, oh, it's all Indian cinema, and you appreciated it?
No, I could tell they definitely have a different flavor. I don't know how else to kind of describe it. Definitely the Telugu films are more masala. They have the machete fights. It's just kind of everything is up to 11. But I like that. I like the sort of the stylized, the fights, and then the leaves are rustling, and I enjoy it. It's so people are like, oh, it's so fake. And I'm like, okay, how is it? Like, I'm watching these Marvel movies and people are throwing each other around.
Yes.
So to me, how is it any different? They're more inventive looking. I'm bored watching all of these Marvel movies and watching these fights with superheroes or Transformer cars or whatever. I'd rather watch, So to me, it's a different kind of a superhero. It doesn't trip me up that it's not realistic or whatever.
I absolutely go with the flow with that, because I really enjoyed the kind of the crazy ideas they think up, because there are one or two channels on YouTube which actually react to South Indian fight scenes, because they're just so unique. I mean, I know a couple of those fight scenes, like is it Kathi with the coin fight? I think that and then you have the sort of the kinds of Alu Arjun where he plays the priest, and he does the fight scene. I've seen that film. It's just really blows your mind how they think about this, and each film it's kind of almost separate. They never repeat something twice. So where do they find time to come up with something new and original every single time? Something huge. So all these guys who watch it, I mean, they're into these kind of things, and they're just their minds are like, just blown. So I enjoy it personally. I love those South Indian films. Especially and as you said, Telugu is the more action orientated. Malayalam's the almost like the indie film route,
Yeah.
and then you've got the Tamil, which is much more has a story to it.
And it can have a lot of depth of emotion, and
Yes.
and that's why something like Mani Ratnam's recent film, the initials are CCV, but I can't remember the title exactly. But it was a gangster film with 4 big stars, and that was kind of in the same way people are disappointed by Thugs of Hindustan. It's like technically it was good, but it didn't have the heart that we're used to having from a Mani Ratnam film.
Yeah.
And so there was no one person to root for, and so it's like that's, I don't know, from Tamil cinema I expect more heart, and that's I enjoyed it for what it was, but my expectations again were up here because it was a Mani Ratnam film. Yeah. And it just, but I enjoy all of them, and it's kind of like, well, what's my mood tonight? What do I want to see? The same way if you were am I gonna watch a Michael Bay action film, or are I gonna watch a small independent film from Sundance, or what is your mood? It's the same. Yeah. It's the same kind of thing, and I just I'm lucky in that so many different films play close to me, because I've definitely talked to other people who have channels even. Like Matt Korkan Nala, he lives in Colorado,
right?
And he may have to travel long distances to see some of these films, or they just don't play where he is. Or like you're saying, there's in England, not necessarily every film comes there. So I'm just lucky of where I'm located that I do get most of the films, or they may be delayed, and that's why some people don't understand. Like a Malayalam film, we may get it a month or a couple of months after it played in Kerala, and they're like, "Why haven't you done a review?" I'm like, "I'd love to do a review, but it's not playing here. Like I can only, when I can see it, I'll see it. So.
But do you also not have, like we do? As I said, we have satellite or cable. And the films are on there pretty quick, within a couple of weeks after they've been released. So do you not have that? Do you only have streaming to go to, like Netflix and Amazon, or do you have cable and satellite? No, I mean, not you personally in America.
There is satellite TV. I don't subscribe to it, so there may be satellite channels. But even within my cable subscription, I felt like for a while I had Eros Now, which was like something I can watch through a Roku or something like that. It's just now Amazon Prime and Netflix seem to be adding more and more content and really going after those audiences and creating original content. I mean, Breathe with Madhavan and Amit Saad was on Amazon Prime, and then we had Sacred Games on Netflix. With Nawaz and Saif Ali Khan. And then speaking of Anushka, I think she's partnering with, I can't remember now if it was Netflix or Amazon Prime, but she's going to be creating some original content for streaming services with her production company. So I'm excited about that. So I think there's going to be more and more of that, because they can bypass the censor. They don't have to go through the censor board. They can make maybe what their vision is in their mind of what they really want it to be, and then they can just can put it straight to streaming.
No, can I just tell you about this? Because this happened, this thought happened in my head earlier today, because I saw something, a review of a new series on Amazon, or I think it was Amazon or Netflix, I can't remember. But basically they were just giving it a rough time. And I could see why, because I could see it going down this route. But now they've got this non-censored channel that they can put out on. So it's just an excuse to just swear and have lots of profanity and nudity. Well, not nudity, but a lot of sexual.
Well, yeah, they did. I mean, Sacred Games had some nude scenes. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but this is what this reporter was actually saying, that this, I can't remember the name of the series, but it was absolutely awful. It was a 10-part series with Ali Afzal.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember the name of the series, but they said it was in 10 parts. It was absolutely awful. And they said it's just an excuse to just swear a lot, have lots of sex scenes, because it starts off with a female doing things by herself, and then it just goes on, without any plot or whatever. So I think I knew that this might be the pitfall, and it certainly looks like it's going that way. Unfortunately, Sacred Games and
Breathe.
the one, Breathe. I mean, they really sort of open the doors, but then now you're going to get some of the non-desirables coming through those doors as well.
Well,
that's my worry. And then people are just going to get bored with the actual content from Indian cinema. So I just worry about that, because they love these two so much that I just hope that they don't get bored and think, oh, well, here we go.
You know what? I mean, Netflix is putting out all different kinds of stuff. Some stuff works, some stuff is amazing.
Yeah.
And some flops and just goes away. And then, they quietly take it off the service. But we'll see. It's like the Wild West. I remember when we first got cable when I was like in high school. I mean, Cinemax used to be, the channel Cinemax was a rival for HBO, and they called it Skinemax because it was just all sorts of sort of soft porn, plotless movies and whatever after dark. So, we have that too. But yeah, to me, to get to see some of these directors' pure vision of what they want to do, and also to tell a longer form story, because sometimes a story cannot just be contained in even 2.5, 3 hours. It needs to be told over a longer period, longer number of episodes. And it's like being able to watch a novel length, vision of their story that they want to tell. And so that's exciting too.
So, I don't know if you heard, obviously, but Rajamouli is actually has actually given the go-ahead for Netflix to actually do Bahubali before the beginning, it's called.
Right.
So, and I think they're already commissioned for 2 seasons already. So I don't know if they've started filming or not, but
there was an associated book called Rise of Sivagami. So it was about the mother.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you, to me it was like a Game of Thrones wannabe. I read the book.
Yeah.
But I could see if you took this story, it could be made better as a miniseries. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if they're directly going to, if that was part of the arrangement, them authorizing this novelist to sort of to write this book, and then it was the intention that they were going to use that for the miniseries, or if it's going to be completely from scratch or what. But it sort of tells the tale of how she became, all the political intrigues and how she became, because you always wonder, like, how did this woman get married to that guy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but yeah, obviously I'm excited that he's, licensing it out and and maybe just being executive producer and maybe he's going to help some younger directors get their feet wet to, I mean, that's one thing I think Yash Raj does well, and Karan Johar is they sort of have a stable of these young directors that they'll let them do smaller films and work their way up, and so, Karan's being mentor to some of these people, and like Ban Bajabarat was one of those small films that ended up making it big,
being huge. Or you get the same director given umpteen chances and they still make a disaster, like Thugs of Hindustan. Vijay Krishna Acharya. I'm speaking about him.
Well, I'm not sure how many more chances he's going to get after this.
Thugs of Hindustan might be the final nail in the coffin, but before that he made Doom 3, which did a decent amount of business, but critically it wasn't acclaimed.
Yeah.
And before that, he had a huge star cast with Saif and Kareena in Tushan, which is where they met and fell in love, which was a nice story with Akshay Kumar, but unfortunately it just didn't gel together completely. So I think, they can actually promote the wrong directors sometimes.
I'm just hoping that this Andhadhun and Badhai Ho, which the key thing about both of those films is that they had fantastic scripts.
Yeah,
and so I hope, instead of it just being this loosey-goosey, the director sort of narrates the basic story and they just make it up as they go along while they're filming. A good script can go a long way.
Well, let me tell you. I mean, it's now come to we're in this day and age where they actually have a bound script nowadays, because these actors now have agents and lots of PR people working for them, so they have a whole team of people. Whereas in the olden days, going back as far as even the early 2000s, or prior to that, all they got was a brief outline of a plot, word of mouth, and that was it. And you'd come up on set, the actor would come up, and there'd be a little scriptwriter typing away the dialogues for the day, and they'd just be told to perform that scene, and that be it. So those were the days of old. But whether somebody still practices those things, I don't know. But they shouldn't really, because we're now in an age where you've got agents, you've got bound scripts, and actors are much more savvy. They will only look at a full script before they can actually commit to it. So whether Amitabh and Amir actually committed because it was a Yash Raj film, B, they were given a very loose synopsis of, it's an action film. You play this sort of like a pirate, you play this comedic actor, and loosely sort of give them a plot line. Maybe that was the case, I don't know, but certainly I don't think that was a bound script whatsoever. So but I must say, going back to the South Indian films, I mean, I'm also a fan of Mani Ratnam, as you said. I think he's one of the best directors in India, not just South India, because he has done a lot of Hindi films as well, or he's done parallel versions. So we had Ravin with Aishwarya and Abhishek, with different versions. So in the South Indian version, I remember. I think it was
Vikram. I think it was
Vikram, yeah. And so we had that, and then prior to that, they made one of the best films that Abhishek has ever made, which is Guru. With Aishwarya Rai. Now that was his best, Abhishek's best film by far, and which is the film that they met on, and he proposed to her.
I mean, that's another one where you can see it happening on screen. I mean, they have. I loved the scenes of their kind of married life together, and just how sweet they were together in that film. It's not necessarily my favorite film ever, but those particular scenes between the two of them, I just thought were so good, and you could just see it, and I can see what she sees him. He's a sweet guy. He's really a sweet guy, and it came through in that film. I just remember, like, there was a scene and they're in bed together, and they're just kind of, I don't know, joking or whatever together, and just, it was like, how rare is it to just kind of see those little quiet moments of married life, and like that. It was really nice. Yeah.
But it was actually based on it's a biopic of a true real person. And it was exactly real life mimicking real life, because in real life the wife was slightly older than the husband, which is the case with Abhishek and Aishwarya as well, and they kind of sort of had similar parallels going on in that respect, and they were from different communities, or well, not quite different communities, but they weren't actually known to each other, kind of thing. So you could see, as you said, the chemistry was there. They'd made a couple of films before that, but she was going out with Salman or somebody else at the time, or Vivek Oberoi. So, it didn't quite click. But as soon as they were free and they did this project, the fireworks happened, and that was it. So, but thanks to Mani Ratnam, I think. And, again, like you said, some of these earlier films like Roja and Bombay and Dil Se, made in Hindi, of course, because I understand those. So, absolutely love those films. There are a lot of great directors that are respected in the West from India, and Mani Ratnam is one of them. So, I think... not the whole the general public in the West know about it, then at least certainly a lot of the people in the know in the movie business actually know of these people. Who did I hear of recently? I think it was James Cameron who actually praised, who was it now? It's gone out of my head, but he was praising he was praising Vinod Vidhu Chopra, who actually made a Hollywood film a few years ago.
All the Pretty Horses, or it was something like that.
Yeah, something. Yeah, that was it. Yeah. So, and in fact, that was a remake of a rehash of a Hindi film called Parinda. which starred Jackie Shroff and Anil Kapoor and Madhuri Dixit. So James Cameron actually sort of praised Vinod Vidhu Chopra, and he said, he quite liked that. And there's a lot of big Hollywood directors who appreciate it. And of course, now we're getting I forget his name now, but the big Hollywood director who made the Scorpion King, he's coming now to do Jungli with Vidhu Jamwal.
Yeah, I'm blanking on his name too. But yeah, I thought that was very interesting. I don't think he's done that much in Hollywood recently.
But there's a second film which was bigger than the Scorpion King. I forget the name of it, but it was a huge blockbuster.
Yeah. I'm blanking on it too. I know I looked it up when I did the trailer reaction, but yeah, I think that's an interesting partnership, and he evidently really admires Indian films, and it'll be interesting to see how that comes together. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. We've talked again, like
we can talk for hours.
We can talk for hours.
But we'll do this on a regular basis.
I think we have to, because I learned so much from you. You have so much insight.
And ditto.
and I'm so glad that you have your channel now, because you need to share all these talents with the world. So thank you. And I will say that to any of my subscribers, please go out and check out Melanie's channel, because she's been amazing, not only with Bollywood but also South Indian films. Yeah, and also, if you haven't subscribed to Sunny's channel, you need to do that right now. Press that button right now. Like this video, share it, and subscribe to Sunny's Starlight.
Thank you very much. But what I will say finally is, because there are only a handful of people like yourself, which I really, really enjoy, because you go beyond just doing reactions. You go beyond just watching the latest films only. You expand your horizons in the past or in other directions in different film industries. So I really enjoy the banter that we can actually have, because you bring a lot to the table. Hopefully I bring a lot to the table with my sort of crazy trivia in my head.
All right. Well, we will definitely do this again soon. Thanks, Sunny.
Thank you very much.